Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. You just heard, and I would like to thank the two gentlemen. We heard the voice of a prominent representative of prominent member states on its Arctic policy and what their vision on the current European Arctic policy. We heard Jari, who did the report of the prestigious European think tank, also given reflections into what might be the new EU Arctic policy. Maybe for a clarification and so that the public well understand where we are not yet drafting a new or adapted EU Arctic policy, but the voices, even here during this conference, has been extremely strong that the European Union should do so, although our most recent policy is only from 2016. And I think it's useful to clarify the procedure. If we want to have an updated or a new Arctic policy, we first will need a political decision at the highest level in the European Union. And as Jari said, we will have in 2 weeks' time, we have a new European leadership. And we really hope also with the support of Finland, which with its current Finnish EU presidency, which is supporting very strongly the European Union, that will be a legacy of Finland, so that we might have a decision. But even if we would have a decision today to have a new or updated policy, it's a long and complex process. It's inclusive, consultative. We will have extensive consultations with member states, with parliaments, other stakeholders. So even if we would decide to have today a new policy, we might have it at the earliest in 2021, even if I would say there is a certain urgency. And again, what has been stressed by both gentlemen is that there is a need for an update, and not because the current policy of 2016 is not good enough, not that the European Union is not engaged on the file. I would even say, on the contrary, we are extremely engaged. But the developments that have been taking place are so dramatic that there is a call that the European Union even gets stronger engaged than it is for the moment to address challenges like climate change, to promote sustainable development, to strengthen, I would say, multilateralism and to cooperate. And that's why we will have probably a new policy in a new future. And they will have, and as Jari said, I think it's very important that it's a very useful reflection that the European Commission think tank made about it. The key element will be that the new policy will have to take into account all the geo-economic, geopolitical and security implications of the warming up of the Arctic. But what will not change, and there I'm very, very convinced that we are unique in our Arctic policy, that we engage strongly with indigenous people, that will not change, that we strongly engage with Arctic stakeholders, that will not change, and also our objective to have a safe, secure, stable, prosperous, and sustainable Arctic will always remain the key of our EU Arctic policy. Now I come to the questions, and in the first place I would like to ask Senator Bizet. You heard, France has an Arctic policy. We just have a new German Arctic policy, and as Jari said, there are many. What is actually the relation? How does a national Arctic policy, for example, of an EU member state, relate to a European Union Arctic policy?
I think that it's very important to have two levels of reflection about this issue, this important issue. National level, with our roadmaps, and many member states have done this reflection, and we must have cooperation, strengthen reflection and action with especially European level. I think that many new members of the Parliament, of the European Parliament, must involve in this issue and work about the roadmap of the national report. And I hope that we can share this reflection and, if possible, to speak the same language.
Absolutely, I fully agree. If we speak the same language in Europe, we are strong. If we don't, we are not strong.
Of course. Yes.
L'union fait la force.
Absolutely.
Gary, also congratulations with this excellent paper, which contains very, very good ideas. You have heard here during the conference and that more and more people say that there should also be a European dimension to address the security issue. And reading, for example, the recent German the German Arctic policy, it explicitly recommends that there should be a more active involvement of European Union and NATO in security measures. You touched slightly in the paper upon it. Can you maybe more elaborate?
With pleasure. I think the fact is that, as I said, the 2016 paper, which is a valid policy document of European Union member state, has committed to said probably the biggest lack what is there is the fact that it doesn't address the geopolitical challenges, which has been coming more and more closer. And I think, in a way, it's a bit sad to say that, but we seem to be so that in Europe and European Union, we tend to react when the other ones are acting. And especially the Chinese growing interest and activity in the Arctic has been really one of the main factors that has, in a way, forced the European Union also to consider its own position. And of course, I think, as been heard many times in this room, also the American interest and Trump administration clear interest on the Arctic has been demonstrated, for example, from his statement concerning the Greenland. So I think it's important that instead of trying to react what the Americans want, what the Chinese want, we need to have a common European view. And I fully agree everything what has been said, and it's good to see in front of audience in here that we have a united European front in here, that we do agree that we need to have a common European position, which has to be formulated together with the member states, with the parliament, with the local population. And I also address what you said, the European Parliament role cannot be forgotten in that. And I think European Parliament will be extremely important, especially in the further discussion and debate. And I think actually in the European Parliament, the will to have a more geopolitical and also security discussion is actually coming straightly from that side. And in that way, it is a bit disappointing. I put very frankly, it's disappointing that in the hearing processes of the Commission, the Arctic was not addressed in any of those hearings. And also, I have to say that I was disappointed to find out that Madame von der Leyen's letters, mission letters, the Arctic was not mentioned in there. So we do have the work to be done and to remind our new Commission, our new President, the importance of the Arctic, what we have.
I fully agree. Now I'll open the session to questions from the floor. Yes, please, Jari.
So, thank you, Ambassador Marie Anne. First of all, I would like to thank you for being so active EU's Arctic ambassador, and we have seen it here during the years in the Arctic Circle Assembly. But during the Finnish chairmanship in the Arctic Council also, the visibility of the European Union has been increasing enormously, and it has been a very important contribution. And we have seen you also in so many other events outside Iceland and Finland, even in Asia and so on. Thank you for your contribution and work, and thank you for moderating this session. But I have a bit tough question to our distinguished senator from France, and that concerns your president's statement some weeks ago. He has been saying that, and this is tough language, because he called to avoid using new Arctic shipping routes, and he said, this route will kill us in the end, because this route may well be quicker, but it is a consequence of our past irresponsibility. And we have heard that the CGM, the world's fourth biggest and largest container shipping company, they announced that they will not use the northern shipping and maritime seaways because of this statement. So it would be useful to know your view and how much it corresponds with President Macron's view. And of course we know that French companies are already in the Arctic. Total is very heavily involved actually in Yamal and Sabetta. And of course, Jari, you can also comment, and Marie Anne, about this. And by the way, it's not only a French company, but it's also Hapag-Lloyd, the German company, shipping company, which has also refused to use northern sea routes.
Yes, it's a very delicate question, but in the remark of the report of the French Senate, we have stressed that it is forbidden in the future to use especially the heavy fuel. And I think that it's very important. We cannot allow this. But we must explain and work this issue more.
Well, if very briefly, because hopefully we can have one or two more questions. I think the Arctic Sea route is still a promise. It is something which we'll have to wait and see. It depends very much, of course, on the climate changes. It depends on the political atmosphere. It depends on the reliability of the route. And I think we've been discussing also here, it concerns about the security. The sea route can be only acceptable, competitive if you can secure that it can work, that you have the safety operational there, you can have a rescue, etc., etc. And then in the end, of course, it is a political decision of the member states. How do we approach that? How do we see the Chinese road, belt and circle? I think during these few days we've been seeing also how the circle actually goes around Arctic Sea and makes this Chinese economical network that is built there. So as been said here before too, China is a partner. China can be extremely important partner, especially in the climate change struggle that we have. But it is fact also that China is a systemic rival for the European Union. And we have to find the balance between these two things.
Thank you, Jari, for the question. I mainly, thank you for the compliments. I mainly would say that we are working, the European Union together with the member states are working on this issue of the use of heavy fuels in the framework of the International Maritime Organization. And I think that we hope that in future there will be a moratorium in using heavy fuels in the Arctic. I think that should be the final objective. But in general, all the key elements of policies of the European Union towards the Arctic, the focus is on sustainability. Sustainability is absolutely crucial. You must have, or you will have, a development, an economic development in the Arctic, but we will do everything that it's really guaranteed that is a sustainable way, and also listening to the people living in the Arctic. Next question. Yes, please.
Ambassador, Commander Hillenbrand from the Dorsey Marshall Center in Garmisch-Partenkirchen, Germany. Ambassador, you mentioned that the new Commission has not even mentioned, or the approaching one has not even mentioned the Arctic once in their hearings. First of all, to me that seems to be a sign that the Arctic is not taken that important by the EU, or the new Commission maybe. The second part is, as long as we are not becoming an observer state as EU in the Arctic Council, can we really prove somehow that we are important in that area?
Let's put it this way. There's a lot of other issues too that has not been mentioned in the hearings and in the mission letters, to be very frank with that. I personally would have wished that it would be in there, but it doesn't exclude the fact that it will be there. And I have actually, as Marie Anne said here, I have a full confidence that especially the Finnish government, as the EU rotating presidency, will be keeping the Arctic high on the agenda, will be reminding the coming president about the issues. And I have understood that Prime Minister Rinne has already done that. So it is really in there that in that way we have to wait and see. We have to wait and see how the work will be done and how we'll be proceeding. Maybe Marie Anne, you would continue.
I share your optimism. It's not because it's not mentioned in these letters of designated commissioners that it will not be taking place. I mean, it's so important, and I'm extremely confident that the new President of the European Commission, Mrs. von der Leyen, I am 100% certain that European Commission, the new one, will, and the new European leadership, it's not only the European Commission, will pay sufficient attention. And you all are here, and the member states in the Parliament, to recall the importance of it. Regarding Mr. Hildebrand, the observer status, we are a de facto observer in the Arctic Council, and I must say that it's maybe not the most satisfied situation, but we are treated equally as the other observers, and our experts contribute to the work of the Arctic Council, which is an extremely important forum, and we are very pleased that we are able to contribute.
And luckily we have forums like Arctic.circle when the European Union voice is heard clearly and loud.
And with these words, I would like to thank you very much. I would like to thank both gentlemen for their presentations. I would like to thank you for having listened to us. Thank you.